It may only be rookie minicamp, no vets, no hitting, nothing like that. But there is a little bit of football of some type going on at One Jets Drive to talk about. I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. So I'm sure most of you were following today on Twitter and maybe the forums at JetNation.com where there was a thread that was started to keep all of the tweets regarding the Jets rookie minicamp day one consolidated to one area, to one space. Not a great deal to report because, of course, it's a very limited situation. There's not, it's not full speed. It's not tackling to the ground. But you do get to see a few things. You get to get a look at how quick guys look, how fast guys look, guys competing against one another. There were some 11-on-11 sessions that the rookies took part in, which apparently I'd forgotten. One or two people tweeted out that that's a change up from the Salah era, that they wouldn't do that during rookie minicamp. So Aaron Glenn doing a bit more early on with his coaching staff, which again, it's just one thing, but it's a nice sign. It's nice to hear that a coach you're hoping will be better than the previous coach is doing more than the previous coach did with the time and opportunities he's being given. One common thread that I noticed today, a few beat writers who were on the scene tweeting out how active, how loud, how engaged Aaron Glenn's coaching staff was, that they were really getting after it with these young guys. And you love to hear that because that's what a lot of these guys, these young kids who most of them, or a great deal of them, not only not drafted, but not signed as UDFA's tryout players. About a dozen players who are just hoping to catch somebody's eye, hoping to make a play and get signed on as a UDFA. And that's normally what will transpire in the days that follow. That's when the actual UDFAs will end up getting offered contracts if the team wants to keep them on the 53. So that's something to watch for in the coming days. But not a lot of arms there. Two quarterbacks in place. Adrian Martinez, the holdover from last year, and Brady Cook, the quarterback out of Mizzou, the undrafted free agent. Plenty on him. Last night's episode, myself and Emery Hunt of CBS Sports, if you go back and watch that, had Emery on to talk about that class, to talk about the UDFAs, and specifically to talk about Brady Cook because he was a big Cook guy, along with myself, heading into the draft, and feel like he's a guy that the Jets may have gotten some really good value for, or some good value in adding him as an undrafted free agent. So saw his name on a couple of tweets, one on a deep overthrow, but another one on a good throw, avoiding pressure and getting the ball off, dumping it off and completing to a tight end, which is, part of his MO, part of his that skill set, that ability to avoid pressure, his ability to run. We've talked a couple times about how he had one of the better 40s at the combine. And I mean, you don't even have to know that. If you just go back and watch him in college, you can see that the guy can run really well. So put that on display a little bit today. Again, those are the only two quarterbacks there. Martinez, both those guys can run. I mean, every quarterback in the Jets room can run. From the starters, the vet, Tyrod Taylor and Justin Fields, of course, and Martinez. Listen, Martinez, I don't like his chances. Just turned the ball over way too much in college, and I get that improved that a little bit in the UFL, but just too much, too much with the turnovers for him. So I would be surprised if he hangs around. Micro Fox saying how live was Cook's arm. Didn't really see anything in terms of the velocity, but really with what we saw of him at Mizzou, as I said, even someone who loved him as a player and who hoped he would come in here, doesn't have a rocket for an arm. He's got a good enough pro arm. It's not that he's got a weak arm. He doesn't have that howitzer that some of these other guys have, but he can make the throws that he needs to make. So I'm sure he looked similar to what he has all these years in terms of arm strength. As I said, coaches were really active. Let's see. One interesting note, this one came from Brian Costello, pointed out, and I'm surprised that, when you're talking about controlled environment, practice, and things like this, Costello saying This is a thing he's not seen before with the Jets quarterbacks. Today at practice, the coaches had them wearing GoPros on their helmets at practice, which I would have thought, given all this talk about AI and being able to use this first person technology to see what the quarterback or to give the quarterback different looks on defense. I'm surprised that hasn't been incorporated in some way with the GoPro. That could be my imagination, but I feel like I've seen it somewhere, and I guess I figured that must be something that's happening everywhere, but apparently not up until now. So there's another good sign that maybe this coaching staff is being a bit more forward thinking than the previous group. Arian Smith, we saw his name a few times. He did have a drop in drills, not 11 on 11s, just receiver drills. Again, it's it's day one, it's a drop, it's not a huge deal. A lot's going to be made anytime he does bobble or double catch or drop a football because of the numbers, the history, and I get it. I guess it's fair enough for people to worry about it, but I'm not gonna worry too much about a drop. The speed was evident. Several reporters, several commentators who were there saying that it does pop. It jumps out. It's obvious, which I would imagine it would be. I mean, like I said, when you're running in the 4.3s, you should be obviously fast. As I said, watching him at Georgia, Jackrabbit is what he reminded me of. Just off the line, the guy was absolutely out of the blocks and past his man many times over. He's just got to manage to stay on the field, and when he's on the field, find a way to keep the ball in his hands, and he'll have a really nice career. He'll be a good player. Nick Ferreira, who reports on the team, said that he thought Smith is a guy that could, in short order, could challenge for that wide receiver 2 spot. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I would think they would want a bigger body there rather than have Garrett on one side and Smith on the other. You think they would want a bigger guy, but look, you can have big slots. You can incorporate guys in different ways. The main thing is, are they going to find a way to incorporate the guy because he has that 4.3 speed? Claimed he ran in the 4.2s at Georgia. Maybe he did. I don't know. Those aren't obviously official timed reported speeds. But if you watch him on film, look, whether you would say 4.25 or 4.34, whatever it is, dude's faster than everyone else on the field when you watch him play. That counts for something. That was something I noticed about Robbie Anderson early on in his career. That he just often was the fastest guy on the field, and people say, "Oh, he's skinny and he doesn't have any moves." Right, but he's still running faster than everyone on the field in a game where running faster than everyone else is pretty important. Carved out a pretty nice career for himself as an undrafted free agent. Another guy with a bunch of bad quarterbacks, but still had a nice career in Robbie Anderson. So again, the 11 on 11 stuff was fairly new, not something that they did last year. Interesting note here: Andrew Stokes is a punter they've got in camp. 30 years old, an AFL, not American Football League or Arena Football League, Australian Football League, an Aussie who wanted to try punting. And he came over to the U.S. and he did a really good job of it in college. And the Jets have brought him in. Again, 30 years old. But if the dude can, look, that's something even as a kid. And we've seen guys over the years. Darren Bennett come from rugby or Australian rules, whatever he played. And I've always thought, man, why wouldn't you find one of these guys who can punt and bring them in, because it gives you an extra tackler on special teams. These guys are not your typical punters. And I think as a kid, probably up at 3 a.m. watching ESPN 2 or 3 or whatever Australian rules football was on, watched a little bit of that, and I'm watching these guys kick the ball down the field, booting the hell out of it, and then smacking the hell out of guys on the other end. And it's like, that guy would make a good punter. So the Jets have a guy in camp who might be that guy. Armand Membu was asked about Cook, about finding out Brady Cook was going to be a teammate. And he said Cook actually told him about a week before the draft that the Jets had told him there was a chance if he wasn't drafted that they would take him. Actually, that wasn't the way he worded it. But basically, Cook knew a week before the draft that he might be a Jet. And he told Membu. So Membu obviously happy to have his college quarterback with him by his side. Lawrence Toafili, one of the tryout players. If you saw my tweet earlier today, I retweeted a Toafili play from 2023, I believe it is. Give me a follow there at on Twitter, JN Radio _ Glenn. There you see right there at the bottom of your screen, JN Radio _ Glenn. Get me at Twitter. I tweeted that out today, an old play of Toafili, and it's an incredible play. It's one of the best plays you'll ever see. Toafili gets hit down the right sideline on a swing and evades one or two defenders and then gets wrapped up, dragged to the ground. And Toafili doesn't hesitate at all. He knows that even though the defender wrapped him up around the waist, pulled him down to the ground, that he the defender pulled Toafili down onto himself, onto the defender. And Toafili just rolls over and pops up on his feet and keeps going and scores a touchdown. Incredible play. His 40 time, and this is why 40 times is so weird. Because in the tweet, I said, good speed, good elusiveness. And then he ran like a 4.6, 4.68, I think, 40 is pro day. And but you watch him on film and you're like, well, there's zero chance this guy's in the 4.6s. Like 4.6, you don't get on the field if you're on a 4.68 as a running back. Excuse me. And then I found a tweet that says he's over 20 miles an hour on a run against Syracuse a few years back. Like, the dude can run. If he's running a 4.68, I don't know if he had broken legs or what, but even given his speed, he's going to have a really tough haul. Any running back is with this group, because you've got the three starters, or the three guys who are in place right now. And then you've got Donovan Edwards, who was another guy. If you watched last night when I talked with Emery Hunt, I said he might be the best bang for buck guy the Jets added this offseason, or, through the draft. Meaning, obviously, as a UDFA, you paid nothing for him in terms of picks. And I think he's good enough not just to make the roster, but to contribute immediately if he's given that opportunity. Edwards was an absolute stud. It was, I believe, Nick Faria again, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, tweeted out today that he's gonna give the Jets some hard decisions to make. Meaning, they're gonna have to look at him and they're gonna have to look at that running back room and say, do we keep somebody over this kid who was an absolute stud at a very high level of competition? As I tweeted out the other day, the guy, I believe, can be a factor out of the backfield as a receiver. He didn't do that a ton at Michigan, but I feel like he's good enough to do it. Believe he can do some returning. And as a running back, he's just an explosive, big-time playmaker. As Emery mentioned last night, and what I talked about after they signed him, if you look at his film from a couple of years ago, the dude was the ultimate big play back. It was like, 50-yard run, 60-yard run, 70-yard run, huge runs, which is what had him over 7 yards a carry over the course of the season at Michigan. So he's going to be one to watch, folks. Donovan Edwards. The more, as much as I do love Brady Cook, I think he's got every shot to stick around. The only question there becomes, do you carry 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks? Not a lot of teams carry 3. For my money, if you've got an injury-prone veteran as your QB2, then go ahead and carry 3. So I'm hoping Cook hangs around as QB3. But again, then your running back situation, do you carry, or how many of those do you carry? Donovan Edwards is going to be one you're going to have a hard time cutting if he plays up to his full potential, because that dude is an absolute monster. Isaiah Davis, again, good player, but wasn't drafted by this regime. And when there is a new regime in place, they can say they like you all they want, and maybe they do. But if they didn't pick you and they found a guy who they think is better than you are, then you could find yourself on the outs. You could maybe it means practice squad or whatever. And I don't just mean Davis. I mean any player in this situation. So Edwards is the one to keep an eye on as far as the backfield. I think he's got a shot that was echoed today by Faria, and others have said it. It's I'm not breaking any ground here. But he was one of the first names I saw on the UDFA list where I thought, wow, this is a guy you don't even realize as the draft is happening that nobody took him. and way too good a player to go undrafted. So now he's a Jet. You hope they benefit from it, and he hangs around for a little while and becomes a playmaker in the pros the same way he was in college. But as I said, just a quick one tonight. Just wanted to wrap up the news and the notes from around camp, from what we saw, or sorry, from what was reported from those who were there, and more tomorrow. If the beat is out at the facility at One Jets Drive, feeding us some information. Hopefully, some more notes on some of these lesser known guys. Hopefully, a few of these guys shine and find their way to or find a way to work themselves into the picture for a roster spot or a practice squad spot. Have a good one, Jets fans.